Hello, and welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour, the weekly bridge to the future of the piano tech community. I'm David Anderson.
And I'm Ethan Janney. And we're here to ask great questions, and then we'll shut up and listen to some of the authorities, experts, and most outstanding personalities in our little world of pianos.
So, put on your best set of headphones, and let's get started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. It's great to see you again. We're starting to really get back in the swing of things here. Life is returning to the new normal, getting our vaccines and getting out there, feeling a little bit safer. Good stuff. Good to see you all. I'll just wait a minute for a few people to join us, and we'll sort of get started with today's session. But yeah, we're live on Facebook and YouTube too, so hi to everyone out there that's checking us out on the live stream. And I see Dave Skolnick's here. I see familiar faces: Ron Engel, Linda Kay, Ernest Unrau. Yeah, we got our regulars here. It's really great to have you guys always back checking us out. I see it. Let's see here. Paula. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you, Ethan?
Good.
Palawazik.
Have you been joining us before a lot? I haven't talked to you.
No, not a lot. A while ago, but not recently.
Cool. Where are you located?
I just moved to Cincinnati, but I was in Milwaukee, so I'm familiar with.
You know about this guy, Bill?
A little bit, yeah. He came and spoke with us once, and I visited him in Madison. So, yeah.
You got any beefs with Bill over there from the?
Oh, all kinds. Of course, we're fellow technicians, right? No, none at all.
That's good. Me neither. All right, cool. Well, I'll start to get rolling here as the stragglers start joining us. I'll give a little intro to what's going on. So this is Piano Tech Radio Hour. It's being brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, an online educational resource that offers you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at www.pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. And on today's show, let me let a few more people in here. First of all, I'll say last week we didn't see much of David Anderson, but he did join us late. It's just that Ken Eshday had a pretty packed presentation for us, so we didn't get to check in with David. This week, David's out. He's not actually feeling well, so keep him in your thoughts. And he hopes to be back next week. So we're all thinking about him, and looking forward to having him join us again. I will give an intro to today's guest. He's been with us before, and we like him, so we brought him back. And his name is Bill Monroe, and I'll give you a little bit of background on him. After graduating from school at Montana State University in Bozeman in wildlife ecology, his career took a detour around 1999. He decided to tune pianos full-time. He's the owner of A440 Pino Services in Belleville, Wisconsin. Bill first began piano tuning and servicing in Bozeman, Montana in 1999. 2003, he moved his business to Verona, Wisconsin, and relocated to Belleville, Wisconsin in December 2005. He learned the trade studying the Randy Potter School of Piano Technology and by working with other piano techs. As an RPT member of the PTG, he feels that continuing education is extremely important and therefore continues to attend various professional seminars, conventions sponsored by PTG. Also seeks educational opportunities outside of PTG and has been instructing as well as learning. So we appreciate him joining us for a convention there back in December and giving a great presentation. So yeah, Bill, how are you doing today?
I'm lovely. I can't complain. Work has been exceptionally good. I guess my one complaint is I'm struggling with how to say no sometimes. And I think I've finally found my limit. I've spent lots of time in my life just kind of growing business and engaging in more and more activities and finding a way to make it work. And things have gotten really busy lately, which, as far as complaints go, that's a pretty benign complaint.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I heard a good way actually how to say no recently. I forget who it was. Is this guy's kind of like a really busy guy, like maybe like a business consultant guy you might have heard of, and he was like traveling on business, but he brought his kid along, and they had planned like a day at the zoo, the local zoo or something, and he ran into like a colleague, and the colleague said, "Oh, hey, let's go get lunch and let's go hang out." And he said, he was talking to the guy and he said, "Oh, I'd really love to do this. Like, that sounds like a great idea. So I'm really excited about going out to lunch with you." And meanwhile, I think his daughter's telling the story, and she's starting to get disappointed, right? Because she's had this day at the zoo plan with her dad, and now she's going to hang out with this friend and, kind of miss out on all that. But yeah, he continues, he's like, "This sounds really great. It's really great to see you. I'm really excited about going to lunch with you, but I can't because I have a date, with my daughter, and we're going to go to the zoo today." So it's a nice way of saying it, where you don't just say no, but you kind of definitely let people know that you appreciate whatever opportunities on the table, and say it with grace. So I'm going to be trying to do that more often, because we all have to choose our no's.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're in your shop today, which I don't think we've ever been there before. What kind of stuff is going on in the shop lately?
Well, should I just start with the tour?
You can start with the tour. You can tell us about stuff, whatever feels good to you. And also,
right,
I'll say this too before we start walking around. If anybody has questions that come up for Bill, that can also direct the conversation. And so we're in his shop. He's probably going to tour us around a little bit, tell us what he's working on, show us how he keeps things organized. But if anybody has a question that comes up and, we get into it, that's fine. We can go a different direction, right?
Yeah. So, well, let me just start with, I'll do the verbal, I guess. And, things in the shop right now, it's about to get really messy in here, but behind me you can see an early 1900s Steinway O, which is it was a spec project that started with COVID. I have some spec pianos in here that I keep stored for just such occasions, and COVID gave me an opportunity to pull that down and get started on it. So that one's nearing completion, actually. I'm at the point where everything's strung up and ready to go. The action's basically put back together. Need to put a back action in it and throw the dampers in, and then essentially regulate it out, and it'll be ready to go. So then it'll be up for sale or whatever. And then, well, I'll do the half tour. I'll go behind me. So I have a Mason and Hamlin 50 right there that's in for new hammers. That's getting close, kind of tucked away behind the bench there. Underneath the cloth is a Steinway M that's going to be assessed. It's filled with verdigris, so the piano is likely going to be getting a new action as soon as the owners agree to it. There's an action over on the bench over there for another piano that I just picked up last week, which is getting new action parts and some other work done with trap work and lyre, etc. And then I've got a couple more. I've got another upright restoration coming in, an upright rehab coming in, and I still have to go, and I was just at another piano yesterday, and I have to write up that estimate for another upright that we're going to do some work to. And it, like, in the last month, things have just exploded. And actually there's one other piano back there that's set up right now, which is just a hack piano. I have a student for the first time in the shop, learning tuning and repair and all of that good stuff that we can do in the shop. And so we have a piano back there that's basically sacrificial. We can do whatever we want to it, and that's great. So a lot going on in the shop right now. Yeah. And at the moment,
ask a couple questions?
please. Yeah.
I got two that came up for me, and you answered the first one, and that's like, do you bring in people to help you on these projects and things? So it sounds like you've got one person, but they're relatively new. Maybe they're not super useful.
Right.
Is there anybody else that's there to kind of support?
No.
Okay.
And this has kind of been, it's been part of my way of doing work. I'm a bit type A. I have certain ways that I like to do things, and I want to, among other things, when things leave my shop, my name's on them, and I want to make sure that they're done to the level that I think they should be done to. So it's been a challenge. I have two young boys, 14 and 17 now, and they've helped me on and off with tasks that are repetitive enough that I can teach them quickly and they can do some things for me. But yeah, it'll be interesting. With the student that I have, she's progressing pretty nicely and really seems to enjoy the shop element of things. So we'll see where that goes. That may end up being a source of assistance for me. But currently it's just me. And so, yeah, I heard a phrase one time from Dale Irwin, and the phrase that he said was something like, just say yes, figure it out later. And so and it served me well. I mean, because ultimately, I guess that's kind of what I feel like is if I've needed it. And I do have a buddy here in Madison that is a skilled rebuilder technician. And he's joined us a few times, I think, here on Radio Hour as well. And so if I really get in a bind and I just need some help, then, I can lean on him a little bit too, though he's relatively busy also. So it's right. Yeah, it'll be interesting here in the next 6 months or so.
Now, the other question I had was, you said this piano in the background is one on spec, and maybe you bring in pianos or you have a few like hanging out. And I was just curious, like the stories, or if there's a pattern behind how you acquire those pianos. Are they just something that somebody's wanting to donate? You pick it up? Is it for sale? Do you look for these things? How are you getting a hold of the pianos that you bring in to, kind of fix up speculatively?
Sure. Most of them just come from my relationships in the field with my clients. Or, I might find them. I don't do a lot of active looking because I think one thing I've learned with, almost 20 years of having a shop is that pianos tend to find you. And here's another instance of figuring out how to say no sometimes to things. I've got, there's that Steinway that's almost done, thankfully. But then I have 4 others just kind of stacked on the wall in the back of the shop. A couple of Mason and Hamlins, another Steinway, and a 1900s Blüthner. And, the three of those instruments were clients, or, through a client that I was made aware of them. And one of the things that I have learned for myself once I started getting busy too was, like, as much as a piano could be fantastic, I had an opportunity with a Weber Grand, a 6'2" or 6'3" or something like that. Weber Grand, gorgeous, beautiful veneer, elegant carving, just a phenomenal looking instrument. And a lot of those early 1900s pianos, grand pianos, they can all be world-class instruments if you put the right work into them. The problem, of course, is that they don't have that market value that a Steinway or Mason and Hamlin does just by awareness. And so it can be a tough sell to take these off-brand instruments and not lose your shirt on them, unless you have a lot of patience and can find just the right buyer and that's willing to pay what they're worth because they like that uniqueness. But anyway, it's been difficult because I've had a few of these come in, like Henry Miller's and Weber's, and I had a Bush and Lane in here at one time that I thought, oh, that's a cool piano, I'll grab that. Now I tend to say no to most of those instruments. Right. But stick with something that's going to have some sort of reasonable market value just by name.
Cool. All right. Well, was there anything else you want to say before kind of showing us around a little bit?
No,
Okay,
let's
cool.
walk around.
I'll say this before we transition there. If people are watching on Facebook and YouTube, I'm going to put a link in the chat real quick because we'll sign off the live stream. But if you want to join us on Zoom, there'll be a link in the chat to register. So we'll see you in here if you join us. Okay, cool.
All right. Well, I'm not sure the best way to do this. Wonder if I can turn. Do you know if I can turn this around?
You can turn the camera around. I think it's like in the lower right-hand corner or something after you tap the screen. You can sort of show what you're looking at. And I can, if anybody's on their phone and they figure that out too, you can share with us the thing.
I don't, unless it's in like meeting settings.
Yeah, I think if you just like tap the screen, I'm trying to figure out. I don't have my phone with me right here. You can just like tap the screen and it shows up that little camera with the
corner.
Upper left.
Hey, there you go. You did
awesome. So now I can look and see. Okay, so first I have to start out with my older son is 17. He's far more talented academically than his father ever was. This is what he loves to make fun of. You can see this cord coming from my house out to my shop.
We'll say you're not an electrician. Or
that's my Ethernet.
That's your Ethernet. Nice.
So I wanted a direct connection this time because it was bad the last time. But anyway, so he loves to make fun of my technical abilities. But anyway, so my shop, I designed this building or we built this. It's been 16, 17 years, I guess, since we built it. Specifically for having work as a piano shop. So we did rough it in up around here where above the doors in case somebody wanted to put an overhead door in at some point. But for now, all I have is just double French doors at the front for an entry.
So are you saying you constructed this building or just modified it, or what's the
no, we built it. We built
cool.
it. So my father-in-law and my grandfather-in-law and I built the building. We contracted out the concrete. We contracted HVAC. And that's about it. We pretty much built everything else. So it's still,
awesome.
It's a work in progress, but it's been a good project.
Awesome.
So walking in, I've got some storage right away, right by the door. And you'll notice it is a mixed use building. It's almost exclusively my shop, but I am a cyclist and I keep my bike stuff out here hanging on my ceiling.
We got to see the secret fishing poles on the other ceiling when you were changing the camera.
And there's the fishing pole. So those are my two indulgences in my shop, I guess. Power panel, refrigerator for glues and that kind of stuff that I want to keep cold. Probably one of the most important parts in the middle of that screen is my sound system. I've got things, you can't see one back in behind, but there's 4 good speakers throughout the shop, and I always have music on. The silence is wasted music listening time for me. So lots of glues and lubricants and supplies and stuff right away walking in, some reference materials, etc. And this is a little bit of a blast from the past, the library card catalog from many years ago, which is a parts cabinet for me.
Well, that's cool. It's got a little desk ledge coming out of it too. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, because back in the day when you were looking up books, you had to you pull out the whole drawer of if you were looking up the card catalog, you had to pull it out and set it out, and you could look through. And
I remember those days. We'll tell our children about that. Yeah, you can tell and show your children. You can also show them a picture of a cassette tape.
Yeah, I still have some of those. And I kind of have a little throw space down here where I bring anything that I don't want to freeze or overheat from my daily tool stuff that I just kind of throw in here when I get done with my workday if I'm out tuning. Then I have 2 humidifier units that I run in here in the winter primarily, but they're on and set to run whenever humidity gets a little low.
Quick question. I think it's about the card catalog. Pat Wilbur says, how big is that? I guess it looks like maybe about 4 feet tall. And oh, wow. You're not 4 feet tall.
I'm small, but I'm not that small. No, so it's about 5.5 feet. Yeah, it's about 5.5 feet tall. So pretty, you can get here's my center pinning stuff, you can see is in one of those drawers. So these are pretty deep drawers. They're 14, 16 inches deep. It goes back quite a ways. But yeah, this has been a really cool thing. I've really enjoyed having the card catalog for storage. It's worked well. So yeah, moving on around, air compressor.
Sorry, one more question from Pat. How big is the shop? I'm guessing maybe square footage wise is the.
Sure. It's 24 by 40 downstairs. It actually has an upstairs as well, which I can show that if we want. But the upstairs, theoretically, the upstairs was supposed to be my office, but reality was that I didn't like coming out to a cold building in the wintertime. So my office ended up staying inside, and the upstairs turned into a place for my kids to hang out with their friends and all of that. So it's worked well.
Interesting.
So yeah, 24 by 40 is the lower, and then 14 by 40 is the upper. So do the math for square footage, I guess, around 1,000 square feet downstairs. So, and like a lot of us who have shops, I'm kind of a pack rat. It's hard to get rid of things. I've got, plywood that we haven't quite found a use for yet, but I can't hardly get rid of it. I've, again, a work in progress. This corner of the shop is plumbed. I've got water out here, and this is where the sink is supposed to go, but I still haven't managed to sink in my shop, if you can believe it. But it's coming. It's on the horizon. So yeah, moving around, then furnaces behind this wall. So, and then a dehumidification unit for the summer times, which is pretty heavy duty, and does the job great. So again, for like 1,000 square feet, and I tend to keep the humidity in here somewhere in the wintertime. I try and keep it up to hovering around 40, maybe a little bit less, probably between 35, 38, something like that. And primarily my focus is more on consistency than it is on a particular level at that point. I don't need it too humid in the winters, and similarly in the summers, I'll tend to float humidity up to maybe, we get really humid here in Wisconsin at times, so I might let it float up to say 48 to 50 at the highest. But again, just really working to maintain that consistency.
I got to come up and see you. I'm not that far away in Chicago,
Please come. It's a great place to hang out.
Yeah, I'll hang up in the upstairs office.
Yeah, that's so.
I have a question. I've got a question here from Benedictus Bazaris. Do you do casework and finishing in this workshop? He has a work home area, but is worried about painting in a living area.
Yeah, it's a good question. And essentially, no. I'll do small stuff. If I need to refinish the lid of an upright or something like that, I'll do that. But I really tend to try and steer myself away from refinishing as much as possible. I used to do polyester repair, and I've stopped doing that. I'd rather just work on pianos. And so that was one of those no moments, I guess, and decisions that I made at some point to say, I don't enjoy doing this. I don't like the results I'm able to achieve. I felt like the learning curve for refinishing was just way too shallow, and it took too long to get real good at it. And it was time that I'd rather be working on pianos rather than to finish.
By the way, I wouldn't say I'm an expert at saying no. I think I'm good at it in certain situations, bad at it in others. I've got a buddy who's really been very intentionally practicing it. And it's actually interesting to watch, because I literally ask him if he wants to, hey, do you want to work on this project with me? What do you want to attend this event, whatever? And he'll say no. And I'll be like, oh, why did he say no? But then I'll see he's calmer. Right. He's got more control over his time. Like, he's more focused. Yes. There's an exercise that I got from this guy named Tim Ferriss, who's kind of like a productivity guru. And it's like spend a day or a week and just say no to everything that you can, just as a practice, you know.
Sure.
It's not easy, but it's an interesting experiment.
So here's the other instruments I was talking about. They're kind of tucked away in the back. I apologize for the mess back here. It's a little bit nuts, but I keep some of my tools are back here in a tool chest as well. And then piano's back here. Up against the wall is this Blutner, which it'd be really cool to get this one done. It's a little bit more unique case. The legs are actually threaded tenons, so it's all wood. There's no hardware. And it's a Blutner patent action, so it'll be a little bit different restorative process. And then there's a Mason AA and a Mason A and a Steinway M back here, just waiting for some attention, which probably will come when I die and they move on to the next piano technician, but we'll see. Then I have some kind of my metal work area back here if I need to do anything with bench grinder, which again is also somewhat occluded because I have lots of other stuff that I needed to find places for. Some more storage. This is an action model that a buddy of mine over on the east side of Madison made from a piano that was being sacrificed. And so now it's something that a student can practice on and learn repairs on in sort of a more realistic setting where you actually have to work around parts and that kind of a thing.
That's pretty cool.
It is really cool. It actually worked out really well. So then here in the...
Got another interjection here. Yep, that worked. Yeah. Nancy Salmon said she's interested in that dolly, height and use.
The wood one?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, so that dolly, that's what I use when I'm kind of in the middle of the structural rebuilding of the instrument. So it goes down, it slips, it would go just right underneath the piano here. And then you can knock the legs off and you roll it around on the dolly so that you're not damaging legs or anything like that. I usually have it under there until after stringing. And then once I've got it strung up, then the dolly comes out, the legs go on and we move forward from there. But yeah, it's been a cool dolly. It's worked really well. I also, use it for plate refinishing and that kind of stuff. So I pull plates. I've got a chain fall from the ceiling and I'll pull a plate out and then drop it down onto that dolly. And, you can do whatever cleaning, repairs and refinishing of plates. So, and, that adds to that question earlier about refinishing. And I do refinish my own plates for the most part. I don't know why. I just decided that was something that I did want to do. And so I do. So the rest of the back of the shop here, this is mostly the machine area. Some fairly heavy machinery in some cases, dust collection. And actually, when we built the shop, this was kind of a cool thing, which I would repeat. I don't know if you can see down in here, the dust collection actually goes down into the floor and then it runs under the concrete over here to a source in the middle of in the middle of an island of tools. And so I can connect my dust collection without having hoses running all over the place to this central port. And that's worked well. In a shop like this where, it's one big room, you can kind of get a sense of it here in the back where the machine stuff is, and then looking back towards the front where the instruments are. It's just one big shared space. So I have to be a little bit conscious of the mess that I make. And without dust collection, it would be a nightmare. I'd have so much stuff everywhere. It would be more cleanup than work. So
that's great.
Yeah. But yeah, some lumber storage back in here.
Is there any way in which that sounds like, a nice piece of forethought, which, we can't all say that we would have thought of. Any errors in forethought with the dust collection or any? I'm sure there's a ton of them, right? But
any errors?
Yeah, like if you had to do it again, you can't to go re-pour that concrete, and put the dust collection tube underneath. That'd be kind of intense. Anything else that you kind of wish you could go back and sort of lay the groundwork for before you set it all up?
Make it bigger.
Or are you pretty much the smartest? Yeah, make it bigger.
Yeah,
got it.
The one thing I would say is I would overbuild more. I would put more thought into insulation and going beyond what commonly accepted specifications are. I would overdo it, because it just, being able to maintain an environment without having to run furnaces as much makes a huge difference. So I would address that. The dust collection is something too. Actually, I really like that I did it. I really don't like that I wasn't educated enough on dust collection and I only put a 4-inch line in, and that's very restrictive. I would have put a 7-inch line in, knowing what I know now. That would have made it a lot more effective. But yeah, I mean, really, there's not a whole lot I would do different. I'm pretty happy with my space, and it was like, it didn't just go up in a month or two. We got most of it built over the course of a summer, but because we were building it, my father-in-law and grandfather-in-law and I, for the most part, it was kind of a slow process. And because of that, and because we didn't have an electrician come in to do things, we pulled the wire. We could make an instant decision of like, you know what, let's add another light here. Like that one was an addition after the fact. So we could make some of those decisions on the fly. And I think that, was a benefit for me in the building process.
Cool. I got another question. You take another question?
Of course.
So Pat Wilbur asks, and you don't have to share if you don't want to, but asks, what did it cost to build the space?
Yeah, you would ask that. So I've actually got a file folder inside where I kept track of everything meticulously. And the one thing I didn't do was go back and punish myself by adding it all up. Nice. We did it fairly inexpensively, considering that a lot of it was our labor. The biggest thing that, again, we hired out concrete, we hired out HVAC, we hired a crane to come in and do the joists, or whatever the heck they're called, the upstairs. They were kind of prefabricated,
support beams or something.
Well, the whole upstairs, the roof joists were a prefabbed unit. And so we had a crane come in and lift them up, because there was no way. We had a big crew that day of family, but we couldn't lift those things. They're huge. So we hired the crane. But I'm sure it cost $100,000 by the time all was said and done. Yeah,
right. I'm thinking, orders of magnitude. The order of magnitude is tens of thousands of dollars, not multiple hundreds, right? It's tens of thousands,
for sure. Yeah. 100,000. I think it's safe to say by this time, especially, but a long way from 200. So, I think 100 is a pretty reasonable estimate. But again, a lot of labor. We did it. And we just kind of kept going. And my father-in-law has done remodeling stuff in the summers. He was a teacher, and so we got contractor rates for a lot of the stuff that we bought to build. So that helped also.
A follow-up question, in terms of funding it, is that something you could take out like a business loan for, or you just kind of paid for it out of pocket? Or
yeah, I'm sure you probably could. We just kind of paid for it as it went.
Right.
Yeah. It was a plan. When we bought this house, it had like a single car. When being diplomatic, if I call it a garage, it was basically falling over, and we bought it with the intent of demolishing it and building this space. So it was all kind of part of the plan. We moved from a higher rent district closer to Madison, a little further out, so that we could afford a little bit more that way. So the move certainly helped pay for the stuff here. And then a lot of it, we kind of get into setup stuff. And a lot of these jigs and supports and ways of storing things are all just things I built along the way. Somebody asked, I saw it come through the chat too. I have to point this out. This is the lathe that I use. It's a Delta lathe, a variable speed lathe, which has got a pretty long throw on it. And the cabinet, my father-in-law built the cabinet for me, which has all of the accoutrements and stuff inside. Oh, that one's empty. Great. So all my turning tools and all that kind of stuff goes in here. And what I use the lathe for, I used to do a lot more weights to keep the thing from vibrating at all underneath. I used to do a lot of tool handles, and the lathe really has become more recreational for me than functional in piano work. But I like it, so I keep it. And yeah, here's one of those. Can't say no. How many drill presses does a guy need? Well, I don't know. I've got 3 so far. I'm sure I can fit another one in somewhere.
And does it just come from they have slightly different functions, or you got a good deal on it and you want to bring it in, or?
Yes.
Got it.
All the above. Everything. So yeah, the big delta is kind of my go-to for stationary stuff. The Grizzly that I have there, the top actually comes off from that. Some of you have probably seen my images. Like I remove it here, and just the top comes off, and then there's another base. So I can point that out. Right, it's sitting up on top of the cupboards up here, and that's what I use for drilling pin blocks. So I made this base. You can kind of see it there. Which has an adjustable angle on it, and it's hooked up to air and all of that. But so I drill pin blocks in the piano once the plate is back in. So that's what that one gets used for. And then the third one is more sentimental than anything else. Came from another technician, and I just couldn't bear to part with it. And it's a good little drill press.
You just like to snuggle with it every once in a while.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, who doesn't like to snuggle with their tools? And if you don't, well, then I'm not sure that we can relate too well.
You should talk to my 3-year-old, because that's how he talks about his like plastic toy tools.
Exactly. And then so this was kind of my main work area. So whenever we're doing action work or whatever, that's kind of where it happens. The bench top is actually a slab from a bowling alley, and I got that from my dad many years ago. And then got some storage cabinets underneath. This one's really cool. It's the drafting table, or the drafting storage table for documents, which is perfect for things like damper felts, and a lot of our sort of flat tools and things fits so very neatly in there and don't take up any more space than they really need to. Key bushing stuff. So this has been a really fun. I've really loved having this cabinet. But this is the main work area, and this was when my children were much smaller. We made them a small workbench so they could come hang out with Dad.
Nice.
And they thanked me by, you probably have seen these before, my artwork, which everybody's got to have a little child artwork on their wall. And then hand tool area is kind of up here in the front of the shop, along with hardware. I've got a little bit of a hardware store going on. But I usually, if I need a screw or a nut, I've got it. I don't have to think too hard about it. And then the front of the shop is just a bunch of storage shelves where usually, I shouldn't say usually, it used to be that it was more this kind of thing where I had, piano case parts would go on the shelves. But as the number of pianos has grown and the number of tools has grown, some things have gotten displaced, but still serves its function. Lots of additional storage up there.
Cool.
Yeah. And then
I got a question for you now. Of course, like anybody would, you probably hustled a little bit to try to tidy things up before, joining us today. But like, you did a pretty good job here. So, and we don't, whenever I do shop stuff with people, I actually tell them, don't worry too much about neatening things up, because, we just love to see people's shops no matter what. But I just would ask, like, do you have any tips about organization? Do you keep any special habits, like to keep things in order, that help you out?
Being type A is a big advantage, I guess. No, it's an interesting question, because one of the difficulties that I have is in making decisions, in that I know for example, if I go, all right, here's where I'm going to store my lumber. As soon as I put those up, it's never changing. I'm not ever going to take it down. So for me, I think the biggest part of keeping the organization thoughtful was a lot of forethought, really thinking about how I wanted stuff laid out, what made sense, to the point of setting out a piece of graph paper and cutting things out, making little models like you would for a basic architecture class or an interior design class, and cutting out scale models of my table saw and my router and my bandsaw and all of that stuff, and just seeing how it was all going to fit and if I was going to have the room that I needed to have. And so that layout for me was of primary importance. And then after that, just being meticulous and really trying to keep stuff as clean as possible. I did do some cleanup before the show today, but not a lot. I mean, no big things moved around. I just had kind of some stuff laying around that I had to clean up so we could actually see some of the other things. But yeah, for me, it's more forethought than anything else, I guess. And
cool.
Then trying to vacuum every once in a while.
Yeah, that's great. It's, it reminds me of like a pattern that I see, I always think of Sally Phillips, especially. It's like paying attention to these little things that, I might pay attention to, but then I might like stop paying attention to because I'm like, this is a little bit too much. Right. But yeah, those are actually the things that are actually worth paying attention to because you get a result out of it. And like knowing what people have decided to go ahead and do, even though it seemed a little obsessive, right?
Yeah.
But that it worked. It's good to have those things. So your scale models, right? Like,
absolutely,
I could see, I could see the family making fun of you or something like, oh, there's dad with this toy workshop going on here. But you knew that it was going to be useful. So
there's no shortage of reasons for family to make fun of me. So before I forget, I wanted to just share this one little tech tip. I'm a big believer in appropriate glues for appropriate uses. One of which is hot hide glue. I use it a lot. One of the most common methods that I really like to use for application of hide glue, I used to have this set up. You can see I bought an old hot pot. We've all kind of seen this idea. Cut a hole in the top of the lid so your stir stick can go through there, and it really helps keep things from skinning over. And then you put water in the hot pot, put water in a jar inside that. The way you typically do it is you put water in the hot pot, and then you have a separate little, like a baby food jar of hide glue you can then set inside the hot pot. So you get a little double boiler effect, keeps it clean. When you scrape your glue brush here, it just drips right back down into the baby food jar. Since that time, a buddy of mine taught me he used a syringe, and he would just keep a jar of water inside the boiler, and he would keep the syringe in the jar of water, and that worked pretty well. And then I came to this idea. I didn't come up with it on my own. I'm sure I learned it from somebody, and I don't recall who. It actually might have been Vince Merklow out in Utah at a class that he gave on hide glue. I think he mentioned the use of glue bottles. So now I keep my hide glue in a glue bottle, fill enough water in this jar to cover the hide glue, and then fill water in the hot pot right about up above wherever the glue level is. And then I can leave this in here just with the lid or with the cap off. And whenever I need hide glue, it's warm and I can just pull it out, squirt a little bit on, put it right back in. It never skins. It doesn't go bad. It's a really, really efficient way of using hot hide glue that sort of removes some of the learning curve process, removes some of the challenges that people have with using hot hide glue. So I just thought I would pass that along. It's an excellent way to use the product.
Cool.
Yeah. So
should I give you a couple more questions?
Yeah, please do. Let's
see here. Do you make your own wound strings, and how do you store plain strings?
I do not make my own wound strings. Don't use the lathe for that for sure. No, I order sets of strings from our bass string suppliers. Our treble wire, I got to turn my thing around here. I'll pull it out and show you. So for treble wire, I don't remember where I got the idea specifically, but I think it's 12-inch PVC pipe, and it was just a long white pipe, and cut discs out of it, and then cut plexiglass holes for the top, which has a bigger opening, and the bottom you can see a little spindle in the bottom, and this fits on a Lazy Susan. And so I can just draw a wire out and it just spins with the Lazy Susan, and it works out well. So that's how I store my treble wire. I've been doing that for many, many, many years, and it's worked really, really well. Like it a lot. And I'd show you the Lazy Susan, but actually a buddy of mine that I've mentioned before is using that currently over on the east side. So in fact, I'll mention too, that it's a really good way, in my opinion, to sort of keep going through your stock, is to not be afraid to collaborate with people. And this buddy of mine in Madison and I, for things like treble wire particularly, we use the same wire when he's got a stringing job. I send it over to him, and so we go through more wire that way, and can replenish the stock more frequently than if it was just me or just him. Because for both of us, it's just us. We're the only one doing the work, and so we can only turn out so many pianos and still be busy with tuning and regular day-to-day stuff too. So it's helpful. And I much prefer to buy like a larger 5-pound coil of wire than the smaller coils, because every coil you have has memory in it, and it's more difficult to work with if it's in the small coils. So I like buying these, a 5-pound coil usually comes in almost exactly the same diameter as those discs that I made. So it's very easy to just take it out, set it in. And it's much easier wire to work with than those small coils.
Great. That's a nice system you got there. Larry Lobel asks, do you use a system for touch weight like Stanwood's Precision Touch Design?
Yeah, I've gone through the stand. I haven't taken Stanwood's classes, the licensing class. I've taken a number of his classes and have the tools for doing Stanwood type stuff, and I've done that in the past. I also use the Fandrich Rhodes system, which for a lot of what I do it's more user friendly for me. It's more intuitive, and it gets me to my goal a little bit more quickly. But I think it also has been a benefit that I've had some of that background with. I mean, Stanwood, let's face it, is really kind of the pioneer in this stuff, and I think that background knowledge is really helpful. So, but for the most part now, my go-to is the Fandrich Rhodes system. And Nick Gravagna too is another one. He's got some great material out there, and again, relatively intuitive. So I just try and incorporate all that stuff and read as much as I can.
Cool. Nancy Salmon asks, what's the door plan, double doors, garage doors for deliveries? So I think you showed us basically you just have those like a French door thing, and is that the main entryway?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. And for the most part, deliveries are, you can see we've got concrete outside the door. The road is, keep walking straight ahead and you'll get to the road eventually. And usually the trucks just back up in the drive, unload, come through the gate, and they can just roll straight in. There's no steps or elevation or anything. And it's much like any home situation. I mean, there's not a piano that comes into my shop that actually needs both doors open.
Can we have a quick peek at the upstairs? I know it's probably nothing piano, but you said you said you had it, and I'm curious because I'm not imagining that there's an upstairs here. It's kind of cool that you actually got some extra space out of this whole thing.
We'll get to that. I've got so the again, as far as moving goes, having the double doors is really kind of non-essential. I mean, grand pianos don't go in and out of a truck flat. They're on their side. They're very easy to get in and out. Upright pianos, there's not an upright piano that I'm aware of that's wider than the door. So pretty easy getting things in and out. If you want to be super safe, you can open both doors and it gives you a little more clearance, but not necessary. So first off, you'll notice my high-end doorway going upstairs.
Nice.
Yeah. Hopefully there's nothing up here that's embarrassing. Again, not quite finished. We actually just came close to finishing it this last year. I do have some storage cubbies up here. And these actually, you can see they go back quite a ways because there's some piano lifesaver systems in that bottom cubby. So it goes back quite a ways in there. And that was kind of the design of building that, was part storage and placement. Soundboard box, I keep that kind of stored up here for when I'm shipping boards out. And I actually use that as a hot box too. So I designed it in a way that I can set it up and put heaters in it. Basically incandescent light that's warm lights, and I can maintain a level of humidity and dryness in the box. So got my own little hot box up there. And then this is the upstairs. We've got, again, there's some storage areas. All my old journals are up here, and lots of old stuff. I like old stuff. So I've kind of got the old typewriters and journals and reference materials and things. And then actually behind the wall, we didn't actually close this off. You can't quite tell, but I can actually pull this out. And I've got a little doorway that goes in behind, and I can walk back in there, and a lot of kind of light, bulky things, empty toolboxes or packing material or that kind of stuff ends up getting stored in there behind the wall. So there's even more storage in there. But like I said, it's kind of become a place for my kids. There's a hockey shooting tarp that's hanging up there now. My son comes up and sets up a net and does baseball practice up here. And
wow.
Yeah, it's
you got like batting cages. It's a whole sports complex. Yeah.
pretty much what we do. This is kind of my old cabinet where I get a lot. I'm a bibliophile too. I love books, and particularly old books, and there's no shortage of them here. Many of these were inherited from my wife's grandfather. And then just a little more storage, pool table, ping pong table, dartboard. I mean, let's have some fun.
Nice.
So yeah.
Yeah,
so
that's cool. That's cool.
It is. It's nice to have. It's a great place to just be able to come up and relax too during the workday. Of course, we got the lazy boy chairs. Got to have a couple of those. So yeah, sometimes I get caught out here when I'm supposed to be working, and But yeah, so that's the upstairs. And like cool. I said, it was intended to be the office, but cold weather got the better of me, and it was much more pleasant to stay in the house and just have my computer and stuff in there to do office work.
Wow. Well, really, this is really awesome, Bill. Thank you so much for doing this. A lot of really, I found it fascinating to look through everything and just to hear the story of how you got it built and put it together. I mean, it's funny. It probably seems, I'm sure it was difficult, and it had its own obstacles to build this and plan it out and make it what it is today. But at the same time, you did it, so it probably seems like doable. And I can say, at least for my part, to take that on, I'd just probably be too overwhelmed to build that out.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, I would have been too, had I not had a father-in-law and my grandfather, my wife's grandfather. He was super active in the Dane County Habitat for Humanity. So he always worked on building homes in all of his retired life. He actually built or was part of building every single Habitat home since Habitat started in Dane County up until about 4 years ago when he passed away at 99. And he was still building homes. But so these guys were right here for me. And, they had been doing it at some level. And so that took a lot of the fear out of it. And there was a little bit of confidence that came with lack of knowledge, and that we kind of figured out as we went, oh, I didn't realize that would be quite such a big job. But also I was at a place in my career where I wasn't as busy then as I am now. And so, I mean, I spent a lot of hours that summer putting this thing together, and it was busy, but it was more manageable for me to put the hours in then. Like if I would to try and think about it now, if I was going to try and build my own shop, I don't think I could. I don't have that time. Now I'm in a place where my time's better spent working and trying to get caught up with shop work and tuning work, and then just paying somebody who's a professional to do it well. But the experience was fantastic. Just the process, and every experience like that, whether it's with building a shop or, going through and doing work on these pianos. Again, the mantra for me is just like, say yes and figure it out. And I feel like if you do your due diligence and you put in the time and the effort to learn what it is that you're about to undertake, and you're aware that you have limits, like you can do it, you can figure it out. And I think we all can do that. And part of our resources too is other technicians who have more experience. So you can always ask somebody else too. But again, the process of building the shop really took a lot of the mythology of building and what's behind the walls. It all just kind of, now I know what's behind the walls anytime I'm in a home, and it's not so mysterious, and that knowledge is really powerful. So it was a great experience for me.
Cool. So 2 main lessons for today's episode, show, whatever you want to call it, today's session: say yes and say no.
Yeah, ironic, isn't it?
Well, it makes me think, there's a guy named Derek Sivers who he made his career by building this thing called CD Baby, which is one of the early companies that allowed musicians to publish their own music back in like the 2000s. And so anyways, he built this big company. Then I think he gave most of it away to charity, and he kind of lives an interesting, self-directed life after that. But one of the things that he says is, don't say yes unless it's a hell yes. And so that sounds like it's a way that we can put those two things together. Say yes to the things that you're super excited about, but might be a little bit intimidating because you'll figure it out, and definitely say no to the things that don't fit that criteria.
Yeah, well, and I think too, some of that is guided by where we're at in our journey. The things that I should be willing to say yes to 15 years ago are different than what they are today. There's getting to that level of hell yeah now is different than it was 15 years ago. And I think, that's one of the things that I credit with my being able to essentially be busy from the first day that I decided to go off on my own until now, was saying yes to a lot of things, expanding my repertoire of skills of things that I was willing to do in terms of piano work, particularly. And I mean, I still do that today, whether it's doing work here in the shop, working with the journal and doing the editing and doing some writing for the journal. I mean, all of those things just kind of, it's one more area that you have that you can work in. And, there may come a time when you say, all right, I need to not be doing that anymore because I'm too busy, too disinterested, whatever it is. But yeah, especially as we're growing our businesses, the more diverse you are, the more stable you're going to be. It's much like an investment portfolio. And I've been thankful that I've been able to have as many opportunities as I have to grow my skills and to work on my professional life that way.
Excellent. Well, we've reached the end of another fascinating hour. It's been really great to spend some time with you. Really appreciate this. And if there's no more questions, we probably don't really even have any time for questions, but we're getting some feedback in the chat. L. Stewart said, thanks, Bill. Great shop. And got a lot of interesting comments from people along the way. They're sort of appreciate the value of your organizational skills and your advice and sharing everything with us. So yeah, thanks. Anything you want to say before we sign off for the day?
No, just thanks for having me back. I feel guilty. Like shop is always this way for me. When I'm out here, I feel like I shouldn't be out here because it's fun. I mean, if I had my way, I'd just be out here all the time and working on pianos in the shop. I feel very fortunate to do what I do. So I kind of feel guilty. Like I've just been having fun talking about my shop for the last hour. I hope that people have gotten something out of it and that it's been helpful in some way and appreciate the opportunity. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I believe that if we're doing what we were meant to do, it's both fun and valuable to other people. And so we feel appreciated and it's enriching at the same time. So don't feel guilty at all. We've thoroughly enjoyed it. And we hope to have you back again in a future session.
Very cool.
And with that, we'll sign off for the week and we'll see everyone next time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time. Remember that you can catch us live online every Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.
That's right. Go to pianotechradio.com to register so you can interact live and ask questions of our guests.
See you next week.